All right, Shabbat Akim, Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders who were most known for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua for me listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will as always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I thought I would put together this lesson, something I was actually just thinking about. The title I have on the screen here, it says, Knowing Your Insecurities Can Help You to Be a Stronger Fighter, spiritually, right? And something I was just thinking about, because, the scriptures talk about how the earthly tabernacle presses down the soul and weighs down the mind and moves upon many things. And we live in a society that is strongly always focused on, I guess you can say, the physical, how the outward appearance of things, right? So, and I was meditating on some of these things, and I noticed sometimes, Satan would use this information, whatever it is that you might, have my little insecurities about, whether it could be, like, for example, it could be, size, or maybe you're the type of brother or sister, depending on who's listening. You might be the type of person, maybe you're trying to shed a little bit of, weight, or maybe you're trying to gain a little bit or something, maybe you have, a speech problem that you're trying to work on. Maybe you don't speak as eloquent, you know, um, perhaps, maybe you may not be as tall, that's something that, like, for example, in this society, a lot of, women, like to, they, they, s- they like to go after guys that are, I guess, typically tall, or, maybe you don't have, maybe you work a blue collar job as well, or something like that, knowing all these different things, right? But, that you actually have principles, you have morals, you actually have a healthy fear of the Lord, right? And that's something that sets you apart, from, a lot of these other men that are out here, right? A lot of these people out here, because, a lot of these people out here are very prideful and wicked, you know. But the point really is, knowing all these little insecurities, like, I don't know you as well as you know you, but, knowing all these little insecurities sometimes, something that I've noticed is it can help, to essentially fend off Satan, when Satan starts to kind of like plague your mind, because, one thing that Satan will do, from what I've noticed, is that, you know, like, say for example, you might be the type of brother, who is, you're trying to, I don't know, for example, you're trying to, maybe you're trying to work on, maybe something with speech, right? You're trying to develop your speech, or, some kind of competency, right? And, you might get down on hard on yourself because, maybe you mispronounce words, incorrectly, improperly, or something like that, and sometimes, those little things they might bother you. I'm just using that as a small example. Those things can, kind of get on you, mentally. Maybe nobody else is thinking about it, but, you're warring with that there's a war going on in your mind, right? Essentially, because, Satan, would, kind of would plague you, would use those insecurities to, plague you, to bother you, make you feel, inferior, make you feel that you're less than. We're a people who are essentially, a lot of our people don't have, low self-esteem. And what I'm trying to do, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Shai, of course, is to kind of, shed some awareness on these things, so, Satan doesn't get a foothold, you know, into, I guess, into your armor, so to speak, so you can, best decipher, when Satan is trying to get in, and trying to make you feel and trying to also make you doubt, and also trying to make you feel like you're kind of bring down your self-esteem, something like that. Like you brothers understand, you kind of get an understanding of where I'm trying to go with this, right? Because it's a mental, it's a mental fight, right? And knowing this information from what I'm trying to convey here is good. So when Satan because Satan was going to can use this information to get at you, to poke at you, to jab at you. So it doubts and it distracts you, and then you get into doing a lot of vain things that you know what I'm saying, right? So let me start off with this. Uh, just bear with me on this here. All right. Just bear with me on this. Let me just open this up here. Okay. This is Luke 22, verse 31. And it says, "For the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren." Right? So, Satan is trying to get in, through all these different avenues, right? So that's why, arming yourself with a lot of these precepts, it actually helps to actually fight, fight that good fight, right? So, you don't get so easily, it doesn't leave any, essentially, like, when you look at those medieval armor, right? And you look at the different, what's it called? Um, so when you look at those armor from like the ancient times, so essentially you have the helmet, and then you have the things that kind of cover the legs and cover the thighs, and you have the thing that kind of covers the chest, and so on and so forth. But it's something that is, when you look at it, it's something that is extremely very well thought out and covered, right? And that's really the point here, spiritually, and knowing this information also can also be a benefit from what I'm trying to communicate here, because in the sense, because it's something that is well covered, you don't leave any essentially holes in the armor, right? So this is kind of like knowing this information is kind of patching up some of the holes that you might have in your armor, right? And something that I've you know something that I've noticed, right? So this is why knowing this information is good, right? Maybe there are some physical things that you can't actually change, right? But maybe there are some physical things you can change, right? And actually try and develop, right? And like one of the precepts that always stuck out to me in Exodus was when Moses said, like, "Lord, I'm not eloquent," and then the Lord said, essentially, to roughly paraphrase, "I will put my words in thy mouth," or so to speak, right? As a matter of fact, let me get that actually. Hold on. Exodus, I think that's Exodus 4. Just bear with me on this. Hold on. Okay, this is Exodus chapter 4, verse 10, and it says, "And Moses said unto the Lord Yahweh, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech, and of a slow tongue. And the Lord Yahweh said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb, or the deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have I not the Lord? Therefore, therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. And he said, O my Lord, Yahweh, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. Right? So, essentially, Moses is trying to kind of like communicate, like, I'm not as, so to speak, I'm not as a matter of fact, let me get the word eloquent. I know what it means, but let's maybe just for edification's sake, eloquent. Okay, so eloquent in the etymology. Here it says, um, having the power of expressing strong emotions in vivid and appropriate speech, being able to utter moving thoughts and words. Let's see if there's any more here. It says speaking, having the faculty of speech, eloquent, is to speak out, right? So someone who is able to kind of convey and their whether it is their emotions or maybe it's their opinions or whatever it is that they're trying to actually express in a very concise and direct manner, right? Somebody who I normally think about, for example, a good example would be, I guess, when you look at Malcolm X, right? When you look at Malcolm X, and like I remember watching the movie with Denzel Washington, and the way Denzel portrayed him was like on point, because you see he used a lot of his speeches, and he was able to kind of convey and speak, very well. But that's just the way, when you think about it in contrast, the way the Lord really chooses and deals a lot with the lowly, right? So when, and even Paul actually reiterates this as well in Corinthians. I could probably get that next, right? So you might be the type of person, maybe you don't, maybe you might have a little of a speech problem, maybe your vocabulary might not be, I guess, so big, so you may be thinking that you have to work, you might want to actually try and work on that. And knowing these things is, that's what I'm saying, like knowing these information is good, right? And a lot of this and things, a lot of these things you can use and actually build and work on, right? Because we're constantly trying to essentially like perfect ourselves, right? And using Yahweh Shai as an example, because Yahweh Shai, there was a chapter, I think in Mark somewhere, where he talks about how he spoke a lot with authority, right? Just using that as an example, he really is the benchmark, right? That's really what I'm trying to get at. We don't compare ourselves, essentially with each other in a sense of like, oh, I'm not going to compare myself as Brother Akwai. I'm not going to compare myself to, like another brother, so to speak, because they may not have, they're not the standard. Yahweh Shai really is the standard, right? So we look to him because he laid out the example, right? And that's really what I'm trying to get at, right? So knowing this information is really, really, I'm conveying that knowing this information is very useful, right? So you kind of know when Satan is trying to make you doubt, right? Trying to make you feel inferior, trying to make you feel lesser than, trying to essentially kind of keep, your self-esteem high, right? Because, we know that we are a holy people, and the Lord chose us to be a special people above all the people upon the face of the earth, right? So, okay, let me go back to, like I said, I was just using the speech as one example. There could be other examples of, like, different insecurities a person can be going through and trying to work through, you know, but, knowing these things helps you to, be able to combat Satan, you know, when Satan, tries to get like a foothold into your mind, right? And make you try to feel like you ain't shit, because when you think about it, when you look at this world and you look at, like, for example, in this society, how the perception of the Israelite man is not somebody who is seen as well favored or well respected. We're seen as, niggas ain't shit. That's the kind of rhetoric, especially from a lot of our women, try to convey. Niggas ain't shit, but they ain't nothing. But what is the difference between a bench and a black guy? A black guy, sorry, a bench can support a family. You know what I'm saying? Like that is the kind of rhetoric that spews out of this society when it comes to you Israelites, right? You're not thought of and seen as somebody who is glorious. Someone who is you're not the benchmark. Well, actually, essentially the benchmark of how man is supposed to be on earth, because the whole duty of man essentially is to keep the commandments, right? And these other nations are supposed to come and learn from us, right? But we're not seen as people who are sought after to hear what eloquence and what knowledge and what kind of wisdom this person has to convey. We're not seen as that. We're just seen as, for example, entertainers and sports people, and mostly just people who want to have a good time, and we're just kind of kept in a zoo, just for people's entertainment. That's kind of how the society looks at us, right? And that's another thing too. Esau is very good at portraying certain images to make you feel like, okay, this is just who you are, and that's the limits of who you shall be, So he will portray all the gangster rap. He will portray the gangster rappers, the football players, and then there is this new trend of, these feminine rappers and so on and so forth. Like this is all you can be, right? What was I going? Kind of going off on a little of a tangent, but hopefully this. Sound mind. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, and it says, "For the Most High Yahweh hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind," right? And that was one of the precepts that came to my mind, as I was going through some reflection, because it helps to keep a sane balance in understanding, like, okay, I'm not somebody who's willingly being wicked, right? But Satan was trying to kind of like, sometimes Satan would use this information to kind of jab and poke at you. That's why that self examination is important too, right? So knowing this information is like good. It's like, okay, Satan likes to use this, all right then. So, and that makes sense why Yahushua said that man should not live by bread alone, but by every word, right? So knowing these precepts and knowing, and I even applying the different things of your forefathers, righteous forefathers, for example, it's always knowing all these things is good, because that the Lord saw these things, right? The Lord remembers these things, right? That should essentially keep your healthy self-image going, right? Since I mentioned that, I wanted to just get a quick, where was I don't want to make the lesson too long, but I kind of wanted to make 2 points. So in regards to the good deeds, right? Because that's kind of what we're doing in this grace period, is using the grace period to kind of like store up those riches, right? And also that serves as knowing that we're striving to apply Yahushua, put on therefore the elect, right? And hopefully the Lord will have mercy upon us. I was gonna go to, hold on. Let me. Bear with me on this. Hold on. Okay, this is Tobit chapter 12, verse 12 in the GNT, and it says, Tobit, when you and Sarah prayed to the Lord, I was the one who brought your prayers to his glorious presence. I did the same thing. I did the same thing each time you buried the dead. And one day you got up from the table without eating your meal in order to bury the corpse. The Most High Yahweh sent me to test you, right? And I'm bringing this out, because you could think of yourself as, you know, like say for example, you were actually, having, like Satan, because Satan is he's busy, right? And one of the good things to kind of offset that is to also remember not to get like like super prideful about yourself, but I'm just saying, you know if you know that in your spirit, like, oh man, I give alms, I know I'm being good to myself, I'm keeping the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of my ability, I'm practicing a lot of the things, I'm practicing a lot of these precepts, like if you know these things, and if you've done some, some good work, so to speak, like some form of charity, for example, through even teaching this word as well, knowing all these, like, doing all these things kind of helps to, bring into remembrance and helps to kind of like combat Satan, because you're not doing anything wicked, so to speak, if that makes sense, right? Because one of the things I've noticed as well, when Satan tries to get in, um, your mind will start to disregard a lot of the things, a lot of the good things, right? A lot of those good things that you strive to do, that you have done, right? Yes, our righteousness are as filthy rags, of course. But the point is, like, if you're striving to even apply these things and apply Yahweh Shai in different facets of your life, then, when you really think of it, it helps to, fend Satan off. That's the point I'm really trying to get. I'm bringing to remembrance the things that our forefathers did, and bringing to the things of remembrance Yahweh Shai did, right? But that's really the point I kind of wanted to hit. There was one more point I actually wanted to hit as well. Let me go to JV. Oops. Okay, this is 2 Samuel chapter 17, verse 41, and it says, And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him, and the Philistine looked about, speaking of Goliath, and saw David. He disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy and fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh to the fowls, unto the fowls of the air, and the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, excuse me, Thou comest to me with a sword and a spear and a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord Yahweh of hosts, and the power of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day with the Lord Yahweh Bashan Shai deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thy head from thee, and I will give thee the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the field, and to all the earth may know that there is one power, Yahweh, Bashan Shai, in Israel. And I brought this up because, it describes David's essential physical his physical countenance. You know, he wasn't as, you know, big as Goliath, right? You could think of Goliath in the sense of, you know, people who have like maybe a lot of like substance, or maybe they're a lot bigger and so to speak in this world. But you know, David still, you know, had that confidence in this particular situation where, you know, I come to you in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? You know, scriptures say that let not a rich man glory in his riches, and let not a mighty man glory in his might. You know, let him that glorieth in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, right? Speaking of the Lord, right? So, you know, that's the thing. That is what David in this situation was boasting in, right? And, you know, the when Samuel, you know, was looking for him, essentially in the previous chapter, you know, the Jesse, he went through all of Jesse's other sons, and then there was David. You know, he was the keeper of the sheep, right? So, you know, he was the youngest, and knowing these things, like, you know, we're not. The point really is I'm trying to make is, you know, the his physical countenance didn't match uh, Goliath's countenance, right? And you know, all these different things, like, you know, maybe the way that we're born, or for example, it might kind of get you in the sense of Satan is using that information to try and like plague your mind, right? But remembering, these precepts and remembering these stories also helps to combat a lot of these things, right? So that's kind of the point here, but I kind of went a little bit longer than I thought I would, but I sincerely pray that, this lesson was edifying. These things happen. Just helps to become a stronger fighter, right? Like the precept I read earlier, strengthen thy brethren, right? So I don't personally know other everybody else's insecurities, nor do I need to know, but the point is to keep the fire going, right? So okay, hopefully you were edified and comforted by hearing these things, and it's like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Till next time, I say Shabbat Shalom.